for the last. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devan, and today we got one of my friends, and actually we do business together. So, we met through a business marketing, business mastermind group, but we actually do business together. He actually makes all of the merch for Strive 11 Fitness, as well as some of our other friends and stuff. I want to welcome, Cohen DeYoung on the show. He's the owner of Pulse Merch, and thank you for taking the time out. I know you got the machines behind you, and you got a busy schedule too. So thank you for taking the time, brother.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I know me and you talk a lot and everything. I know your story, but for the listeners, how did you get started? Right? Like how did you get into screen printing or merchandise printing? How did that whole journey start for you?
Sure. So in my world, it's actually a pretty common story, but for everybody else outside of the screen printing world, it's not. So any screen printers, I'm sorry, but I am the stereotypical screen printer. I was in a band. I was a death metal drummer. Slept in a van with a bunch of smelly dudes touring across the country. And, when we were buying merch, a t-shirt sale was the difference between getting a cheeseburger for the night or, nothing at all sometimes, or maybe you could scrounge up a buck and get a thing of top ramen or something. So I made the fatal decision of how hard, or not decision, but the fatal thought of how hard could it be? And here I am now with a couple $100,000 of equipment later. So
I don't know. I was going to say the machines behind you are massive, right? I mean,
yeah,
I remember back in high school, like we had a screen printing elective per se, and
awesome.
it was like it wasn't with machines and stuff. Like the guys that
Yeah,
were
you're doing it by
it,
hand.
yeah, with like the wood and
Yep.
it was crazy.
I did that for 10 years. So I printed by hand for 10 years. If you go on my Instagram, you can scroll back, you see me. I have videos of me, pulling a squeegee and doing all that. I did that forever. It wasn't until I moved out here to Utah that I was able to finally get some bigger equipment and have the space to do it. So
how much is one of those big, like that big machine behind you, cost?
This one brand new with the stuff that I got on it, $200K.
Dang, that's crazy.
Easily. So I was, I'm not some money bags guy. Like I had to get a loan for this thing. And I got a sweetheart deal basically. And I got this thing used, but it was like, it's only 3 years old. It's like getting a car with like 10,000 miles on it. It's still practically new, but I got a used price for it. But yeah, if you were to go brand new, you're a couple $100,000.
Yeah, if you guys are listening and you guys aren't watching the episode on YouTube, the machine I'm talking about behind him, it looks like this mechanical octopus, that it has all these different, sections that you can put shirts or different, apparel into and print, basically at scale. So that's, to give you a visual representation. So you started in a band, right? What happened with the band? Why didn't, because I know obviously now you're not, doing that, you're doing screen printing. What happened with the band?
Sure. So I was in quite a few bands, band drama, blah, 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 blah. At some point it was just like, okay, I should probably just grow up and, you're not going to make money doing death metal. So let's I wanted to get married with my girlfriend, my wife now. And I just wanted to keep moving forward. And so I knew I could keep doing this, and it still connected me to the band world. But at some point, it was like, okay, I should probably have a little more stability than just, trying to sleep in a van with a bunch of smelly guys. So,
So was there, with that like band drama and stuff, was there a certain moment that there was just a final straw, or was it like that last band that you were with, that it was kind of falling out, with all of them, and you're like, I'm not going to find another band? Like what was that turning point?
Sure. So the very last band that I was in, it was just a couple of guys were quitting, and it got down to me and just a guitarist, and it was just like, well, okay, here it is. We're just I'm just going to call it quits, and I'll just start playing drums for fun and start trying to do some other things. So
no, that's hey, sometimes we take the leap into entrepreneurship, and sometimes we get a push that makes us take that leap, right? I mean, same thing happened for me. I was at a corporate gym, and it was one of those things where me and the owner got into a disagreement. He wanted to, move me to a location where I wouldn't succeed. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this on my own. Right. So
Sure.
sometimes
Yeah.
it just happens that way. So where, with what you're doing now, what was that first step, right? Now you decided you're going to, be an entrepreneur. You're going to start, screen printing and stuff and
Sure.
merch. Like, what was your first step into that?
So my first step really was I still had a day job during the time. I was printing at night. I did pest control for 10 years on top of this. So I was out killing bugs. There's nothing more metal than killing a bunch of bugs. And then, at night I'd be at home screen printing. Eventually I just had a couple of things happen in life where I took a step back for a little bit. I had to take some time off. I had some mental issues going on that I really had to work through. And it kind of forced me just to get out of working and then working at night as well. And I just had to do a full jump in. That was about 5 years ago now, where I went into this full time versus just working at night. So.
No, and how's that been going? So, I mean, you've been doing it for 5 years, and I know through conversations that we've had and, some of the conversations in the group and stuff, it's one of those things in business, you weather the storms, but
Yeah.
how has your journey been? Because 5 years is a long time. A lot of entrepreneurs don't make it to that 5-year mark, right?
Sure.
With their business. So how has that been, thus far?
So I guess I'll kind of have to go into the backstory of what made me, or what got me out to where I am now.
Right.
During the height of COVID, I was in California, actually, up in like the Stockton area. And, I was still working in my garage. I was still printing by hand, like I was talking about. And I had just jumped in to it full time, probably for about 6 months or so, or about a year. I was about a year in, and then COVID hit, which that was, a fun time. And then the final straw was there was a bunch of gang violence going on in my neighborhood, and I literally had bullets flying past my head, and I had to duck. And I had one daughter at the time, and I just said, "Forget this. We are leaving. I don't care where we're going." And I still get kind of choked up about it, so I'm trying to control myself here. I don't care where we're going, but we're just going to make it work. So I took a leap of faith. We started looking for a place. I ended up in this tiny little town of 800 people. Like, no joke, we don't even have a stoplight or anything out here. But I have some land. I have a shop that's actually, 100 square feet bigger than my house was in California. And I just moved out here, and I just started trying to make connections and make it work. It was until this year, like really probably within the last year or so, it was some of the hardest challenges I've gone through in my life. I had times where I didn't have money to make the mortgage. I was grinding, and it's been a lot of long hours, long days, and I'm here now, and I'm doing better. I'm not rich by any means, but I can at least afford a loan to get equipment, and I'm growing, so it's going well, but it's been a tough journey to get here for sure.
I mean, I think that those journeys are so crucial. I mean, believe me, like I completely get the times where you don't have enough money to, let's say you said make a mortgage, or I've done it where when I first started my personal training and stuff, it was like there was days or weeks where all of a sudden I overspent. I didn't really understand finances when I was first starting out, and I was like, well, shit, I'm eating top ramen and drinking protein shakes for the next week until
Sure.
I get some payments, right? So I think those storms and those tough times, overcoming them is what leads to those skills and that fortitude to allow you to grow to this year, whether it takes 4 years, 5 years, whether it takes a year. Everyone's path is different, but you have to be able to bet on yourself, essentially.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah. There was a time, and if there's any entrepreneurs listening, like there was a time where I literally had $500 in my name, not enough to pay the mortgage, not enough to pay the utility bills, nothing. If I just sat there and held on to the $500, I wouldn't be here today, trying to make this work now. I literally spent all that money, made some T-shirts, like some sample T-shirts, and just gave them out to customers I thought would do business with me. you got to bet on yourself. You got to double down on yourself when nobody else will, and it worked. I was able to scrape by that month. Basically, I was able to get some business from that, and it's a return client now too. I've actually made some really good connections with them. So
See, it's those kind
yeah,
of things. Like, I think when someone starts a business and they think that they have to, have boatloads of money to start business, and you don't start off with just being resourceful, it's one of those things where you almost handicap yourself, right? Like you don't force yourself to get creative. Like you said, you made those shirts, you handed them out with the idea of essentially getting at least a client, and now it's a return client, and that return client refers people and so forth, and it's those things, right? When you just have
sure,
endless money, yes, you could build a business, but you're not building the skills of being a business owner, right? Like that's what comes from, having to figure things out and not just like, I'll just throw some more money at it, hopefully it works. I'll just throw some
right,
more money
yeah,
at it, hopefully it works, right? Like
can't keep throwing
those
money.
people, those skills will catch up to you because you'll limit your growth potential at some point, you know. So with that, now you started your t-shirt shop. I know when you decided to move, you said you had, your first daughter. Now how many children do you have?
So I have three kids now, a 5-year-old and then two 1-year-old twins. So it's been a good surprise in itself too. When I first hopped on the other podcast with our mastermind, Real Business Owners, so if you guys shout out to Trevor and Kale, and they were just on their way right now, and that's in itself is adding not only another kid but two at the same time. I don't wish that on anybody.
I know that's crazy. And I mean, I want to dive into that a little bit too, because that's one thing
Sure.
that I love talking to, business owners that are parents about, being a dad. I mean, I have a almost 3-year-old in 2 months. And so I'm right in between, my daughter's right in between your daughter's ages. And
Yeah.
so I get it. Right. And for my daughter, we found out my wife was pregnant the week I signed the lease for my gym. And I was like, oh man,
I
like,
have a similar story. Yeah.
and
The
I was like, oh, awesome. Like I'm so happy. And at the same time, like I am scared.
Yeah. The first month when I finally made the jump to printing full time by hand, we knew things were going to be tough. A month in, we found out my wife was pregnant. So that was.
It's yeah.
I totally understand.
No, and it's not like we weren't trying and stuff. So I don't want to say it was a surprise, but it was a
Sure.
surprise in the exact timing of it. And so like
Absolutely.
my daughter was born 6 months into my gym being open. So my gym's a baby in its infancy stage. And I'm having my first kid, and all of a sudden I remember for me, I was trying to be the best dad, best husband that I could, but still like we didn't have a ton of employees and stuff. So it's like
Sure.
I would work my 16-hour day at the gym in, being there, and then get home and try to put on my dad hat and be like, don't worry, I'll take care of her at night, so forth. And 3 days into it, like my vision was blurred. Like I was running on like 2 hours of sleep for 3 days. I was literally standing in my gym, and my business partner was like, dude, are you good? And I was like, honestly, I can't even see you
No.
right now. And he was like, and so I got home, told my wife, I was like, look, I physically can't do this. Like I can't see right now. Like I'm dying. And then she was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, I was trying to step up, I was trying to just man up and do what I needed to do. I was like, but honestly, like we got to figure something out, because like I can't do all this. Like I'm gonna die, So that being a business owner and being a father or being a parent in general is definitely tough. One question I want to ask you, diving into it, is how is your relationship, or how's your family's relationship with you and like the business per se? Like, because being a business owner, you're gone for a decent amount of time, and
Sure.
orders come in, and all these things happen, and we can get wrapped up in our business, and we got to make sure that we're not putting our family on the back burner. So how has that journey been for you? What's that relationship like with your wife in the business?
Sure. So my situation's a little bit i- interesting. I guess we could say. My shop is in the back of my property, so I'm actually home all the
Oh
time.
wow.
This helps keep my overhead low, which really helped me out when I was really struggling and going. But the cool thing is if I need a quick break or something, if I need to get away, because I am working those 16, 18-hour days. Sometimes I'm working literally all night. it is still just me. I did have an employee for a little while, but trying to find people out in a town of 800 people is pretty hard. So I do get to see my kids on a pretty regular basis. I come inside for lunch. I'm lucky enough that my wife actually stays home with the kids. So, my kids are home. And so I get to play with them throughout the day. I get to go see them for bath time and eat dinner with them and all that stuff. So my situation is a little bit different than a lot of people. But that being said, at the same time, it's still really hard because being home, you still have, the dad responsibilities that come up throughout the day. And I'm, in the middle of a rush order that I have like an hour left. I'm like, oh, I gotta go. And then all of a sudden, a kid trips and falls and gets hurt. And I figured you can kind of jump into this too. But two out of my three kids actually have a brittle bone disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, OI for short, just because nobody's ever going to remember that whole thing. If you were to look it up online, it's a really terrible disease. People, you can shake their hands and you'll break them. Versus my kids, it's a pretty mild case. My oldest has it, and then one of my twins has it too. And she recently broke her leg just from falling on a bottle, but she's out of the cast now, and she seems to be doing well. So there's some different challenges that come along with having children with a disability, and then also trying to work at the same time. So it's not all gumdrops and rainbows by working at home for sure.
No, definitely. And I definitely do want to dive into that as well in a second. But before, I do want to say, so when you got your property, because I know you moved, you said from Stockton to Utah, why did you choose Utah? Do you have family out there? And then also the facility that you're in, right, being on your property, it looks really nice, right? So
thanks. Yeah.
Did you build that? Was that already there? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so it was one of those things where if for those faith people, it felt like this was meant to happen for me in a sense. Like this was part of God's plan for me to get out here in a sense. My mom lived about 45 minutes away from here. I was a military brat growing up, and I actually lived in Utah at one point. I didn't want to move out to Utah again. I wanted to, live somewhere else and do something different. But my mom lived 45 minutes away, and she happened to find this place. It's a half acre, had the shop already built in the back. It didn't have all this stuff. It was just the bare bones metal, basically. I've done a lot to this place since I moved in. But it had everything that we were looking for and wanted. It was a quiet, tiny town, didn't have to worry about shootings or anything like that. Good, safe place for our kids to grow up. A bigger house, some land, and a shop in the back. And I was like, that's perfect. I can make this work. I will figure it out from here. So my mom just found this place, and we came out, visited, took a look, and it was exactly what we were looking for. So we just made the jump and did it.
No, that's awesome. And what is the culture or societal difference between where you're at in Stockton and and now in Utah? How has that been an adoption for you?
Night and day difference, man. It's I suggest this to anybody. If you're living in a city, get out, go to a small town. With 800 people, news travels fast out here. So when we moved in, people were super welcoming. They were happy to see us. When they found out that we were having twins, people were bringing over meals all the time. It's a totally different world versus, in California, people don't even smile at you or look at you. Versus everybody here, they're saying hi. People, you're driving down the street, you have to wave to everybody, otherwise you're rude. So, it's just a totally different vibe and feel, and I'm here for it. I love it. It's if you're looking for, let me backtrack a little bit. The amount of pressure that you have living in these big cities, you don't notice it, or just being in a place where there's just a ton of people, you don't notice it until you get out, and then you feel like this weight just kind of lift off of you a little bit. It has its challenges for sure. We don't have a Walmart. We don't have any Home Depot's 45 minutes away. It is, it's not easy at all times, but it's from you lose out on the day-to-day anxieties and stuff of like road rage and things like that. You know,
Oh,
there's no traffic jams. Like it's awesome.
no, that's cool. So, going back to like the family life and everything, right? I mean, I can speak from experience, to a degree, because like the franchise side, like my office is at home and stuff. And that decision was actually my business partner kind of made me do it because he's managing the gym and stuff, and every time I was in the gym in the back office trying to do these phone calls and stuff, and everyone's coming back to ask me questions, he's asking me questions. And so he was like, dude, like, you're not getting anything done because you're still dealing with everything here. Just go try working at home. Like, just do it, get out of here. And then all of a sudden what we realized was I was the bottleneck, also kind of like holding back people. I don't micromanage, but everyone would just kind of use me as a crutch. So
Sure.
stepping away, all of a sudden my business partner, who was never really an entrepreneur before, really had to grow into that entrepreneurial role himself. And now it has allowed him to, tenfold, grow personally and as a manager, as a business owner, and then all of our employees too. And then, but the flip side for me is like, now that I'm home, just like you, it's like, yes, I get to see my daughter and do these things that I wouldn't have if, like, let's say if you were still in the band, or like when I was doing personal training, like I was the business, right? And
Yep.
so there's that awesome side of the coin, but the flip side is if you are at home and you're trying to give, kids time, wife time, and all that kind of stuff, how do you deal with telling your wife, like, look, I need to also do this business. Like, I get
Sure.
that you need help right now, but also, like, I'm so behind because I'm trying to, overly give on the family side. Like, what are those conversations like at home?
Sure. So my wife has been my rock. I mean, as any wife should be, but she's been incredible. She takes on as much as she absolutely can. She's actually disabled as well. She has migraines like no other. I don't know how she does it, but she is a trooper, and she takes on a lot. She does a lot. There's plenty of times though where she's calling me and needing me to do things, and I just have to make it happen. Um, there's a little insider trading tip: just invest in Monster because I've been, I'm sure I've brought up their stocks a couple of points for sure, just to keep it going. But yeah, it's what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't suggest it to anybody. It's not sustainable. I'm just working, and then I go in and help, and then I'm coming back out and I'm working till midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, all the time. Um, I'm at a point right now where, because I was finally having a good year, I'm able to invest a little bit more. I'm getting some better technologies put into place, some shop management software, some things that will help me where I'm lacking. And I'm looking into automating as well. I'm looking into literally buying robots to help me out here and getting machines that'll speed up the processes, something that will catch shirts for me, something that will clean screens for me. And so I'm looking for, I'm trying to upgrade so I can be more efficient in the work, but then also I have the time to be home. But right now it's literally just making it work. Just you just have to grind through it, and there's 2 times at 2 o'clock in the morning where I'm sitting there crying because I can't keep going, and I just have to keep going because I don't have another choice. I've made that decision that this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm going to do it, and it's going to happen.
No, so no, and I mean, believe me, I've had that same realization. I get where you're at. Like, and believe me, that realization at every level will still come back, of, am I doing the right thing? Like, is everything going to work out? You have that self-doubt, and then all of a sudden you tell yourself, like, you tell your bitch voice in your head to shut up. Like, we're
Yep.
doing this. Like, you can sit here and cry on the floor, or we can get up and get to work because we're behind, right?
Sure.
But
Yep.
I think that's awesome. I mean, that you are having that vision of, like, okay, like, I understand I can't really, or getting employees is tough for me right now, but there are some things that I can work towards to get some automation, some robots essentially. And you made a comment, right? And I want to touch on this before going
Sure.
back to your daughters. The comment was, you don't recommend this for anyone. What
No.
what what do you mean by that?
Well, just entrepreneurship in general. It is not for everybody. It is stressful. It is all up to you. And, for some people, and you're jumping with, that there's I'm blanking on the word, but basically people have said entrepreneurship is like skydiving while trying to build a plane in the air. Like you're trying to make it work all without a safety net kind of thing.
Right.
For some people, they don't want that. They want the security of a job and a 401k and things like that. So if you're not willing to put in the work and put in the long hours and the stress and everything else, it's not for everybody. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not for everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's why I wanted to, kind of touch back on it. Was like, I think that especially with social media, there's this, light that gets shed on entrepreneurship, that it's so great, it's so easy, everyone
Yeah,
can
take
do it.
whatever time you want. You have all
Yeah,
the free time in the world to go do whatever you want. No.
right. It's like, it's like the whole, 4-hour work week and all this kind of stuff. It's like, you have to realize that entrepreneurship, it's not that you can't do it or that anyone can't do it. It's
Right.
not meant for everyone because it's not for the faint of heart. Like, there are stresses and there will be struggles, there are pains, there's worries, and that is inevitable in any business, right? And so if you're not willing to go through that, then it's not for you. If you think it's all going to be sunshine and rainbows, believe me, I promise you it's not. Like, there's more cloudy days and rainy days than there are sunshine and beach days, right? So I think
Makes the
that's
good day so good though.
exactly, and that's
Like
what I
go ahead, man. Sorry.
oh no, no, exactly, no, and that's why I say, like, it's you don't do entrepreneurship. If you do entrepreneurship, it's not to do it so you think you're going to have a sunny day every day. You do it and you love doing it, because when you do get that sunny day or you do get that value flash, it's worth every rainy day before it. And then you do it for those little moments, those little nuggets of success or pride that you get within yourself for achieving that next level.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like finding gold, basically. You have to work
Mhm.
so hard for just this tiny little nugget. You said nuggets, and so it made me think of gold. But yeah, it's just like that. You find one little piece of gold, and it's worth everything for all the struggles that you were doing the entire week, or
No,
month,
yeah,
or six
exactly,
months.
exactly. And so I want to rewind back to your daughters,
Sure.
because again, being a dad and already knowing how difficult it is, like, you have this additional worry, stress, and obstacle, essentially, for lack of a better word, right? Like, when your daughter broke her hip or leg. I mean, when it broke a
Yeah.
leg and she was casted up, like, that's an obstacle that's now placed in your path of just your business, your regular life. So how has that been? And, like, what was that when she first broke the first bone? Like, what goes through your head? Because I can only imagine.
So my wife has the same brittle bone disease as well,
Okay.
and so we were kind of prepared for it already. My first daughter had it, and she's broken. Oh, I can't even remember now. Over 10 bones already. Um, and then my littlest one, within her first month, we broke 7 of her bones. Um, it wasn't that extreme with our oldest. We're thinking because she was a twin, and this is just a theory. I can't prove it or anything, but we're thinking because she was a twin, and my wife is so little, she didn't really have a whole lot of room to stretch and strengthen the muscles or anything. Because we broke her leg, both of her legs actually, just from changing her diaper. Like
Wow.
it wasn't. We weren't being rough with her by any means, and it. So that was a real struggle for sure because grandma just went like this with her leg, just to push her leg in. She was holding her like this and just pushed her leg in, and that's what broke her leg one time too. So
Wow.
yeah, and so it was madness for a little while there. I have pictures of me previously when right after the twins were born, and twins themselves. I don't wish that on anybody. Just twins by themselves. Uh, there's something called the twin curse, where one will go to sleep and then the other wakes up. You cannot get them on the same schedule. You need, if you were to have twins, or if anybody has twins, you need at least one more person in there to help you for a good 6 months, just because it's hard. Um, Luckily for her and for my oldest, there's infusions now that do help strengthen the bones. There is no cure or anything, but that seemed to have really helped out my oldest for sure, and my youngest. It, it it definitely made a big difference. Like we had a good stint before she broke her leg again, versus like her first month she broke 7 bones, and then we had a good 10, 11 months before she broke her femur. So it does help. It was just one of those things where she's learning to stand now, and then she fell on her bottle, and the bottle landed underneath her leg, and that's what did it.
And I mean, and this next question, I know it's like a weird topic with all this,
Sure.
this trans and parents changing, gender of kids. That's not where this question's going.
Okay.
But
It's like,
just because
whoa,
no. I want to preface that because I'm not talk about steroids for a second,
Sure.
right? And I that's not where the question is going, right? But is there not and again, this is my question because
Sure.
I don't know much about it. Is there not a steroid or like a peptide or something that can, or almost like, what is it called, HGH or something that could help with her disease? Or
So I'm not a doctor either. So I as far as I know, the best things for them are these bone infusions because it's a collagen deficiency. So it doesn't matter how much strength you have or anything like that. It's very similar to osteoporosis in a sense. Um, and actually, these infusions that I'm talking about, it used to just be a osteoporosis treatment, but they found out that it works with children as they're growing. It coats their bones, and then it helps prevent that collagen loss. So it's not going to cure them. It's not going to make their bones stronger, but it's going to help prevent the collagen loss, which is what that brittle bone disease is attacking basically.
I get it. Okay, so it's the collagen. The reason I was asking too is because I mean, one, I know there's collagen supplements and all that kind of stuff, but
Sure.
like the reason I was asking is like from like the fitness side, like I know that as we get older, in general, like why do old people start to have brittle bones? And it's because they start to have muscle atrophy, right? They start to lose their muscle because they're not as active. But it's one of those things where like, steroids in a sense, or human growth hormone, HGH, right? That can help strengthen the muscle. The strain that the muscle puts on the bone helps strengthen the bone. And that's why I was thinking of it or asking about it, but if it's,
I can see that.
so that if I don't know if that's something that you want to bring up to the doctors, again, I don't know, but it's just I know that's how you strengthen a bone, is essentially in a normal person that doesn't have that disease. You would essentially work on building the muscle. The stress of the muscle on the bone strengthens the bone, and so forth. That in combination with a collagen supplement or the infusions or all three, like if that would be something that would be beneficial, because again, like I could only imagine, like it would break my heart, even though every knowing how brittle or how tender you have to be with her, like it would still break my heart every single time that happened if I was in your shoes. So I can only imagine. And so how has that been with like twins, right? And I know because I have twin cousins, and one's a boy, one's a girl, but they were rough with each other growing up. Like, how is that? I know they're only one, but still, like, how is that? Like, trying to explain, or trying to not have one do something daredevilish, or if the other one's doing it, and so forth.
Sure. So, I mean, they're one right now. It's just kind of those things where you just have to keep an eye on them, basically. My oldest, I love her to death, but she's a wild child. But those bone infusions made a huge difference with them. And I'm going to kind of circle back to the activity as well. And that kind of goes along with my theory was she wasn't able to strengthen her muscles or anything, and so her bones were probably weaker. So I'm sure there is something to it. But we go up and we see specialists about 3 hours away every few months to go have them take a look at them. So my oldest, we keep her active. She's in dance. With those bone infusions, she's tried to do a cartwheel off of the couch, which we've seen her fall, and we're like, oh, she broke something, and she gets up and she seems to be doing okay.
Wow.
Which those bone infusions are massive. They have a very mild case of this disease versus, like, if you were to look it up online, most of these people are stuck in wheelchairs. They're deformed. It's a very sad thing to see and witness. And so with with this mild case, we've done genetic testing, and as far as we know, they are the only ones with this specific type that has this one. So it's as far as trying, the oldest loves these two little ones. We still have to tell her to just be careful and watch out because Charlotte, my youngest one, is very brittle, and then the other one does not have the brittle bone disease. So she's running around going crazy. Charlotte's just barely got out of the cast a few weeks ago, and now she's army crawling again. Basically, she was just learning to stand before it broke. So we kind of took a couple of steps back. So I'm sure that challenge is going to be coming up a little bit more as she gets older. But right now, it's just more so like just making sure nobody, like the other twin, isn't going to be falling on her or anything like that.
No, yeah, that's crazy. Well, I mean, that's honestly, I commend your patience and your fortitude for not only having a business and having a young family as well. With 3 daughters at the age of my one daughter. My one daughter, I tell my wife, I was like, I think we got a second child for our first child. Like, you see all those social media posts about the second child. I was like, dude, that's our daughter. If the second one comes out crazier than this, like, I don't know what we're gonna do. And then she was like, honestly, I was thinking the same thing. She was like, I don't like. My cousin and my nephew and my godson, all them, they're like these little sweet little kids that don't move. They'd smile and they're really just chill. And then my daughter is climbing on top of the couch, jumping on top of me when I'm not even looking, and she's like barely, and I'm like catching her because she barely even lands on me. And then she'll be like, whoa, let's do that again. And I was like, no, don't do that again. I was tying my shoe. I didn't even know you were jumping. Like,
That's my 5-year-old.
Yeah, so it's crazy. Oh man.
Luckily for the twins, the one that does not have the brittle bone disease is more of the wild one. She's running around doing all sorts of crazy stuff. She's fun. She's so fun. And then the Charlotte, the one with the brittle bone, she's a little more calm. She loves cuddles and she loves doing all this stuff. So we got lucky there. We got a quote first and second child at the same time with those two. So
that's funny. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what would be, and so I always like to preface this, it's not a tombstone, right? This is a legacy wall, right? So on this legacy wall, has your name, and then it has one message that you would like to leave for either young fathers, young entrepreneurs, anyone basically that you've learned over your journey, right? From, again, entrepreneurship, fatherhood, anything in life. What would be that one message that you would leave for the world?
Sure. So if it's happened, it's probably happened to me. I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I have been in some really dark times. I've said this before, you just have to tell yourself, just not today. I'm not going to give up today. You just have to keep going. If you break it down, because it's that saying of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's that same thing. It may seem overwhelming. You may seem like there's no way out for certain scenarios. You are stronger than you think, even when you're at your weakest, and you feel like you're at your weakest. Let yourself have a cry. It's fine. Like go cry in a corner somewhere for a minute. Let those feelings out. It's good to feel those feelings sometimes too. And then just get back into it. Just keep telling yourself, just don't give up today. Keep grinding. You'll make it.
That's awesome. And where can people connect with you? If they want to order merch,
Sure.
get screen, hats, all that kind of stuff. I know you do it pretty much everything. Where can people connect with you and everything?
Sure. So my company is called Pulse Merch. So Pulse like your heart rate, merch like merchandise. A lot of people go, that's kind of a weird name. Well, I used to do band merch, so that's where it makes a little more sense. So any of the socials, really, Instagram is a big one because you can see my work there, pulsemerch.com. And you can fill out a quote request, and I can get you going.
No, that's awesome. And if you guys are listening, the link to his website will be in the show notes. So check it out. And I mean, I like the name. I never thought it was a weird name. I always thought it was like merchandise that speaks to the heart, or merchandise that gets the pulse rising, right? So I thought it was always cool. So no, man, thank you so much for taking the time out, guys. Make sure you guys leave a review, share this episode with a friend, and like always, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. See you guys on the next one. Thank you, Cohen, for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. 'Cause in the game of life, my stars, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle harder, I go against the current, cause I know in my mind this riches to be collected.